Amy, it's good to see you.
You too.
So, Amy Wicks has joined us, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling. Now, Amy has written a book on homeschooling. She has a podcast on homeschooling, and Amy is located in California. So, we have challenges back here on the East Coast with homeschooling, and I can only imagine some of the things that you've gone through, Amy, out there. So, I think you kind of got into the homeschooling thing through your own personal experience with your own children. Is that correct?
Yes. We started homeschooling in 2020 during the pandemic. My eldest daughter had been in public school for 5 years at that point, and she had started in California. We have transitional kindergarten, so she had started when she was five, turning six, but she had already been in for 5 years. And my middle daughter had started school at that point, and obviously COVID was really dramatic inflection point, I think, in education. But I had always kind of thought about homeschooling. I just didn't really know anyone that homeschooled, and I didn't know how to homeschool. And so when everything happened with the pandemic, and we immediately in California went to distance learning, I knew that that wasn't going to work for our family because I had my eldest daughter who was finishing third grade. She was quite ahead of her class, but my middle daughter was having reading challenges. And so they both weren't really getting exactly what they needed in public school. And then I had a toddler at the time.
That seems to be a common thread, oftentimes with homeschoolers, where they don't seem to be getting what they need from the public system.
Yeah, exactly. So my eldest daughter, she was really bright, and she still is, of course. Even my middle daughter is too, but they both needed different things. And my eldest daughter, I actually had teachers tell me, like, I don't have anything else to give her. The books that I would give her would be too mature for her, her age group and kind of thing. And so they'd have her write these really long essays, like extra long essays and stuff. But I just didn't really feel like she was getting exactly what she needed. And that's not to knock any of the teachers. We had fantastic teachers, but, they're in a classroom of 25, 30 kids, and, there's just not enough to go around for individualized academics at that point. And then my middle daughter, when we started homeschooling, I really realized how in depth and how much, help she needed with reading, because she literally could not read, and she was already at the end of first grade. So, I noticed it, of course, but she was in reading intervention and all these things, and it just really wasn't working. So, yeah, a lot of people do homeschool because they're looking for that tailored education for their kids.
Yeah, and one of the challenges I think I see here with homeschoolers is, you know, feeling isolated somewhat, in the
Right.
homeschooling world, and not having, unity and camaraderie, I guess. And that's one of the things that I think you bring to the field is helping people to understand how they can do things together, really, in a homeschool front. Now, the group that you have out there, the homeschooling group, you do have that ability to bring the students together, I believe. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. So we started homeschooling, like I said, in the pandemic, and of course, there was a lot of unknowns. I knew nothing about homeschooling, and of course, I, like many people, hear all about the socialization aspects of homeschooling and staying home all the time, and that can be, a really stark stigma, I would say, and I've found that it's very much not true, actually. There's lots of opportunities for homeschoolers to socialize, of course. There's programs, there's co-ops. My kids are involved in a hybrid homeschooling program. And that means that we go into a classroom-based education learning community 2 days a week. So we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday at home, and Tuesday, Thursday in more of a traditional school setting where they do have a full classroom of children, and they do have a teacher. So it's nice because they can take instruction from someone other than myself. but also they really focus on the core subjects, and there's not any busy work there. So it's just a great program. And these programs are popping up all over the United States, particularly in California. I would say there are a lot of different companies that are doing this. So it's, it's definitely an up and coming private model that's working, I would say. We also go through a charter school here in California, and that's a little bit different than just homeschooling. So there are different ways of homeschooling. And like in California, it's pretty much the wild, wild west when it comes to homeschooling. It's not really regulated like it is on the East Coast. It's getting there. I imagine that it will be far more regulated in the future. But you can do as much or as little as you like in terms of documentation. If you're going with a charter school, you're going to get a lot more documentation. There's a lot more oversight. And then they do also allocate funding towards families to help them. And then the families reroute that funding into either private vendors, or they can use it for curriculum or field trips, different learning models and technology, lots of different parameters. But there's that side of homeschooling, which is going through a charter, but then there's also as little oversight as you could imagine with just filing one document, which is called the private school affidavit, which essentially in California deems your home a private school. So I've done it both ways. The charter school, I feel, works well for our family personally because my kids are pursuing college track. So we want a little bit of that documentation and help and oversight. And of course, the funding is nice. But there are homeschoolers, of course, that just file the PSA, and there's, very little oversight with regard to that.
Yeah, I think back here on the East Coast, there's a lot more documentation that has to be filed and things of that nature. So, yeah, I get your wild, wild west comment there.
Yeah.
It's pretty open for you guys. The funding is kind of cool with the charter school because you're migrating some of those tax dollars to you guys when you go outside the public school system, which is good, I think. But you also have written a book about homeschooling, and I'm curious as to what motivated you to do that, and if you could tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so the book is called The Modern Homeschool, and it became a passion project. Having just jumped in the deep end during COVID of homeschooling, just because I didn't want to do the distance learning, I realized there was a lot I did not know about homeschooling. And so I had to compile multiple sources in order to figure out what was the best direction for my family and what was really required of me in California. That's like the basic starting point. A lot of people want to know, what on earth do you do to even start homeschooling? Do you notify the public school system? Do you, because truancy is real in California. I don't know how it is across the United States, but, they are watching that your children are getting some sort of education, and you as a parent can be held responsible for that. So I just wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row, especially with my girls, and tracking their academics and whatnot. I wanted to do a good job. And so I did a lot of research the summer of 2020 and just decided to jump into homeschooling. And so I wrote a guide initially because a lot of people knew that I was jumping from public school to homeschooling. And they also were very interested and wanted to know how I was doing this and what information I had found. And then about 3 years later, I started really just deciding that I wanted to write a full book about homeschooling and the point of the book, of course, is to present all of this information that I had compiled, but also just to sort of try to throw a loose definition out there that homeschooling has changed and it's modernized, and there are so many opportunities for homeschoolers that maybe there weren't, in the 80s and 90s. And so I really, truly believe that all the stigmas and, the fringe societal beliefs are kind of gone, and homeschoolers can thrive. They are sought after by Ivy League colleges, and they often score higher on all of these standardized tests, even though they're not really preparing for them in terms of state testing and things like that. So it's just really remarkable, and I thought it would be nice, to try to somehow get this information out to people that are also interested in pursuing homeschooling, that you can get past the hurdles, the initial hurdles of it. And it can be a really rewarding lifestyle because so my husband works from home and I'm at home with my kids, and I do work outside of my house part-time as well. But for the most part, we have a very flexible schedule, and we can kind of wield our schedule to be with our kids most of the time. And then they obviously want to do lots of stuff away from us as well, sports and
Sure.
friendships and social things. But we just make an awesome schedule, the five of us. So it's a great lifestyle.
Yeah, and to your point, homeschooling is becoming more mainstream and accepted, I guess is the best way to put it. And to have that flexibility, because perhaps you can give us an idea, but it seems that you can get the information and the training and the education packed into a pretty reasonable period of time compared to public school, where the kids are there, really long hours, and they're up really early. That's one of the things I have a challenge with a lot of the kids. A lot of these kids aren't designed, at that point in their life to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning so they can catch the bus at 6 or 6:30. So, you do have that flexibility to, kind of meld it around your home life. But you're also teaching life skills as well, I'm sure. I see a lot of that with the homeschoolers back here, where the kids are learning a lot of things about, how you navigate in life and some of the things that you need to be prepared for in life beyond the academics. So, I think that it, as you said, gives you that flexibility, which is really nice. And, to have what you've created with a book and a framework for people to be able to reference to move forward with perhaps some of the trepidation and the fear they have about homeschooling. The other thing that you mentioned is that you wanted to have your ducks in a row, and I think that's important because anytime you're going outside the system, and the focus on truancy is big here as well. You have to make sure that you maintain your elements, you have everything documented, you are staying within the guidelines of what you need to. So I think that's really important. But you also have a podcast, I think, that you do. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I started the podcast last July, and July 2024. And I started it because there were a lot of topics people asked me questions about. And so, generally, like, how do you choose curriculum, or how do you plan your homeschool year, or what do you guys do all day? Like, kind of, behind the scenes essentially of homeschooling. So yeah, it's called the Modern Homeschool Podcast. And that's available on Apple and Spotify. And it's just kind of a behind the scenes and hopefully helpful to people. It seems that we have a lot of listeners, so I'm hoping the information is getting out there, but I want it to be more practical and just, conversational, essentially, of this is what we do, and, here are some ideas.
Well, I think, we, STN, and our leadership want to platform a lot of what you're doing and be able to help others who are in this world, who are trying to kind of navigate, figure out how to even get started. But beyond that, how to create a curriculum, how to keep the students, the children interested. That's a big part of it, motivating the kids too. So, we'd like to be able to get your information out. So we're going to show people how they can get your book, for one thing, and also how they can get on your podcast. So we'll have information up for everyone that they can just click on the link and see where they can get both of those things. Full disclosure for everyone out there, Amy is my niece, and I'm very proud of her. She's done a wonderful job with everything she's in the midst of. And she really, truly has lived up to really the core tenets and core values that we have here. She's a strong Christian lady, and she is bringing her children in a loving and caring environment that is also a strong learning environment. And I know she's a good teacher, and she's kind of a strict teacher too, from what I've But Amy, I want to thank you for being with us. Is there anything else you want to let everybody know out there?
I would just say, if you're considering homeschooling, don't be afraid of it. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's something that can be fully embraced, and there's just so much more information out there now, I think, than there was, when I was in school.
So Amy's information is going to be available through STN as well, because we're going to get some of it up on our resource page so you can access it there. And really, Amy is a homeschool warrior. That's what I'm going to call you, Amy, which I think is important. We got to get the word out to everyone, because someday I think this will be a common thing in our culture and our society. And I'd really like to see us be able to divert some of the tax dollars that go to the public schools to homeschoolers when they do this. I think that's something we should work towards. So thank you, everyone, for checking out the podcast today. And thank you, Amy, for being with us. And we're going to get your information to everybody. So have a great day, everyone. And thank you, Amy, for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much, guys.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.